This lesson will teach you the basics of JavaScript. Why you need to follow this tutorial is because my teaching methodology will be different than the others. I believe teachers or instructors have their own teaching methodology. Someone teaches the easiest and the other one teaches the hardest way. This is one of the challenge I notice in programming world. Most of the programmer wants to teach their students how to code a project before they teach the basics. Honestly, that causes students to lost, so they will give up to continue learning. Whereas here, you will learn step-by-step things from the easiest to the hardest. Which one has to come first than the other one? Before I'm going to start to teach you the course, first I will introduce you with the goal of this lesson. Therefore, you will have something goal. You'll have a goal why you need to watch this video. Remember that at the end of this tutorial or at the end of this lesson, make sure to answer each goals. Now, let's go ahead and start. What is programming? Programming is a set of instructions that a computer has to follow and execute line by line. Learning goals. Why do you need to learn JavaScript? Why you study JavaScript? How to select or find elements? What's HTML content? What's HTML attributes? What's HTML style? These are an introduction before you have to learn JavaScript. Also, how JavaScript changes HTML content, and we'll see in practical how JavaScript can change HTML attribute value and how to use JavaScript to add style. Here, the goal is JavaScript can change the HTML content. What's HTML? What's content? What's HTML attributes? Are something you need to understand at the end of this lesson. As I said, the first question is what's JavaScript? Why you need to learn JavaScript? Or what do we need to learn JavaScript is the primary goal of this lesson. JavaScript is one of the world's most popular programming language. JavaScript is a programming language of a web. Remember when we say it's a web, it's a front-end programming language. Programming language in general can be server-side or front-end. What do we need to have to learn JavaScript? The first thing you need to have on your computer to learn JavaScript is code editor. When I create this tutorial, I consider you have some kind of code editor. If you don't have any code editor, please go ahead and install VS Code Editor, Sublime, Notepad++, or another kind of note editor. Also, when we come to JavaScript lesson, I believe or I consider you have basics of HTML and CSS. So why you study JavaScript? JavaScript is a front-end programming language that uses to build interactive web page. So before you learn JavaScript, make sure you understand what's HTML, what's HTML content, what's HTML attributes, what's HTML style, and make sure you give an example for this question. Give me some example of HTML tag and HTML content, and can you give me HTML attributes, examples of an HTML attribute, and what's HTML style or how to apply style for HTML elements. Again, at the end of this course, make sure you answer these questions. The first and the most basic concept to learn before JavaScript is what's HTML. HTML is a hypertext markup language. It's a code that to structure web page and its content. For example, content could be structured within a set of paragraphs, a list of bullet points, or using images and tables. So what's HTML? In short, HTML is a markup language that defines the structure of your content. Remember, HTML is not a programming language. It is a markup language. HTML consists of a series of elements which you use to enclose or wrap different parts of content to make it appear in a certain way or act in a certain way. The enclosed tag can make a word or image hyperlink to somewhere else, can make the font bigger or smaller, and so forth. Examples of HTML elements. For example, here I have h1 opening tag and h1 closing tag, and at the middle of it I have a JavaScript. JavaScript is a content, and the first h1 is opening tag and the end is a close tag. Here I have paragraph opening tag, a paragraph close tag, and inside we have a content. From this to this we call it paragraph element. Let's learn HTML attributes. HTML has an attribute, or some element can have attribute. Attribute can give additional information to the element. For example, image, source, image girl, ID, image1. Here the source is an attribute. And the next one, href, and right here the closing a tag, opening and closing tag, and here href is simply an attribute. On the next one, image source, the image name, and alt, the alternative name for that image. This source and alt are called attributes. Paragraph style, color green. Here, style is an attribute and it has a value. Therefore, HTML can have an attributes. Alright, now when we come to JavaScript, how JavaScript change HTML content, how JavaScript can change attribute value, and how to use JavaScript to add style. From the top example, I believe you understand what's HTML content. The HTML content is the one belongs to the middle of the opening and the closing tag. For example, here we have a tag. From here to here it's opening tag, and from here to here is a close tag. At the middle we have HTML content. So JavaScript can change the HTML content. If you want to change this content, we can change using JavaScript. Attribute value. Here we have source imagegirl.jpg. We can change the value of these attributes using JavaScript. Also, using JavaScript, we can add a CSS style. The next thing is where to place JavaScript tags. A JavaScript tag can be placed at the header section, the body tag, or it can be placed in external scripting tag. Here, the most common, and it's not only the common, in most practical case, you must use external script tag. The other important thing, or the other important concept to understand is to work with HTML element, tag or attribute. We need to select elements in a certain way using a syntax. For example, we have here document get element by ID. We select elements by their ID. Document get element by tag name. We need to select elements by tag name. We use this one if we need to select element by tag name. Number 3, document get element by class name. If the element has a class and we need to select it based on the class name, we can use document get element by class name. Also, we have a short form of select mechanism or syntax: document query selector all and document query selector. These are the way we use to select something, to modify or to style or to do something. Therefore, these are very important things you have to know before we are going to learn JavaScript. By the way, these 5 things are continuous throughout your journey to learn JavaScript. So, before you learn anything else, make sure you put in on your mind this thing. They'll come all the time. Select elements by ID, select element by tag name, select element by class name, and so forth and so on.